So very good morning to all of you. So friends, welcome back to Anthropology PYQ series. So let's try to decode every question and let's master every concept. So friends, as a part of our Anthropology PYQ series in last session, so we have done with entire questions from Anthropology paper 1. So friends, from today onwards, let's try to begin Anthropology paper 2 of 2025 and let's try to solve some of the important questions from there also. So let's begin the discussion and let's proceed further towards our session of the day. So furthermore, if you see what is the question of the day that is there with us. So if you look at the question of the day with us is this. So write short notes on the following in 150 words. So the question is Soanian cultural tradition. So let's try to explore and let's try to cover up this particular question. Is that it clear? So, so I would like to propose that let's begin with Anthropology paper 2 because as we have done with paper 1, so let's try to cover it paper 2 also, so in a systematic fashion, and then in other series let's try to think about launching another important aspect. So is that it clear for you all? So those who have joined, you can just indicate that you have joined the discussion and you have joined the session so that I'll be aware that who are in the discussion. So friends, now first, if you look from the perspective of the Soanian tradition, so how you should approach to this particular question. So in the very introduction, you have to simply say that what is Soanian culture and why it is named so and when it was discovered. So these aspects you can furnish in the very introduction and very basic aspects. So that's how. So let's proceed further and let's try to understand in a systematic fashion. So once again, very good morning to all of you. So now, if you look from the perspective of this Soanian tradition or Soanian cultural tradition, so can anyone could able to recollect? So why it is known as the Soanian culture or why is it named as like that? So can you able to just text in the chat box? So let's try to know about systematically about Soanian cultural tradition. So if you see from the perspective of this Soanian cultural tradition, so Soanian cultural tradition, it's in a very simple fashion. It is nothing but it's a kind of prehistoric tool technological tradition. So which belongs to a lower Paleolithic to middle Paleolithic period. So it is known as Swan culture because it has been discovered and it has been flourished in and around the Son Valley or Son River Valley. So currently the Son River Valley, it is located in the Pakistan. So this is how the name the Son Valley or Soanian culture has been kept for that. So that's one important aspect we should remember. So answers we are getting that okay, Vinishri is saying that flourished near Son River and Son Valley. So very good. So that's very important aspect. So first and foremost thing that you have to remember is that, so what is it? So it's a kind of prehistoric tool tradition. So it belongs to which period? It belongs to lower Paleolithic to middle Paleolithic. So mostly it belongs to lower Paleolithic. Lower Paleolithic to middle Paleolithic period. So this is one another important aspect that you should remember. So this is another important fact. As we were discussing, it got flourished in and around the Son River Valley. So that's why, so this is also known as Soanian culture. Or Soanian tool tradition or Soanian industry. So different names could be accorded for this. So that's another important aspect. So then furthermore, so if you see from the perspective of the discovery or the timeline of its discovery, so timeline of discovery. So three important scholars we should remember here. So for the first time when the artifacts of Soanian cultural tradition has been discovered means, so it has been discovered by William Theobald. So in 1880, so William Theobald, while conducting his geological survey in and around the Shivalik hills of the Himalayas, so there he systematically found some sort of artifacts. So these artifacts are actually, they belongs to the Soanian tool tradition. So for the first time they have been discovered by William Theobald. So you should remember these names. William Theobald in 1880 found some artifacts. So this is the first scholar you should remember. Then at the second instance, so in the year 1929, so we have a scholar known as D.N. Wadia. So D.N. Wadia was a scholar. So he found some important some of the important Soanian archaeological implements. So this was another important finding. So these are another some implements. That means in simple fashion to say tools. So they have been found by V.N. Wadia, again in the geological excavations and surveys. So furthermore, so actually it was the scholars like our Helmut D. Terra and T.T. Patterson. So you have to remember these two people. So Helmut D. Terra and T.T. Patterson, Thomas T. Patterson. So both of them, so particularly Helmut D. Terra has found them or discovered them in the year 1936, and he named it, in fact, named it as Soanian culture, Soanian tradition. So this is where, like, who named it? The nomenclature has been derived from the Soan River Valley, and the name has been coined by Helmut D. Terra, and Helmut D. Terra along with the T.T. Patterson in 1936, they have discovered different tools and artifacts belonging to the lower Paleolithic as well as middle Paleolithic period. So lower Paleolithic period, so they named it as Soanian cultural tradition. So these are some important and very basic points that you must and should remember from the point of from the perspective of our Soanian cultural tradition. Now, when they have discovered it, so our Helmut D. Terra and T.T. Patterson, so they proposed one peculiar type of stratification of the Soanian cultural tradition. So let's try to understand about the three interval periodization of Soanian culture. So there is something. So three interval periodization. Three interval periodization of Soanian cultural tradition. So this three interval periodization has been proposed by our Helmut D. Terra and T.T. Patterson. So they both of them has proposed this one in the year 1939. And the Soanian industry has been entirely divided into three phases. So first one is nothing but the early pre-Soan phase, and then early Soan phase as well as late Soan phase. So these were the three important phases of the Soanian tradition. So let's try to see them and let's try to mention them. So first, so who proposed it? So this theory or hypothesis has been proposed by Helmut D. Terra, and we have T.T. Patterson. So both of them has proposed this. In which year? In 1939. So they have discovered it in 1936 and they have started exploring them. So according to them, so the entire this Soanian period could be divided into 3 important phases. And what were those 3 phases means? The first phase is known as the early zone phase. So that's one important aspect. So it is called as early zone phase. Second one, it is known as the it is pre-zone phase, first one. And the second one, it is known as early zone phase. And the next one, it is known as the late zone phase. So try to remember this. So here some other scholars also has given other type of stratification. So other type of division of the layers. So where they have incorporated the middle zone phase also. So here itself in our 3 interval periodization, we can club up the early zone phase with that of the middle zone phase, which has been given by other scholars. So you can just remember it. So like we can also we will also denote it with T0, so T1, T2 and TA like that. So we'll also denote it with the letters. So but nevertheless, like let's try to mention them in a systematic fashion, and let's learn as it is now, right? So that's one thing. So here, in order to just find out differentiate this, so they followed some of the methods. So what was this? So they followed they verified the level of technological progression and the stratigraphic methods of dating. So they employed these 2 things. So what was the criteria they saw? So stratigraphic method as well as technological progress or technological progression. Technological progression. So make it progression. So based on this, actually, so they have done this particular classification or 3-period classification. Technological progression. So they were the criteria. So they have been divided on it. Now, if you look into each phase, so what were the type of tools and what were the type of instruments that we can found in this particular industry? So that's another important aspect. So when we say it as a pre-zone phase, so what you can expect here in pre-zone phase, so we can see a very rudimentary kind of rudimentary type of the instruments and artifacts. So where it is known as the early stage, which is characterized by rudimentary pebble stones and quartz flakes. They were there. So it is first and foremost thing we can say it is the earliest stage. It is the earliest stage, and what we can say instruments like we can say rudimentary pebble stones. So pebble stones plus we could able to see some of the flakes. So these flakes also, like simply they were a kind of coarse flakes we can say. So they were simply to say a kind of coarse flakes. So these were some of the earliest tools that were found from the pre-zone phase or pre-zone time period. So then in the early and middle zone phase, so this is basically, in fact, we call it as a kind of a core developmental stage of the swan. So core developmental stage means, so this is the period where, so we could able to systematically develop some of the important tools belonging to this particular period. So this particular aspect. So this we can call it as core developmental stage or core developmental phase. So as we are calling it as a core developmental phase, so what kind of instruments we could able to see, or what kind of tools, technology tools, and what kind of artifacts we could able to find here. So one thing is that, so we could able to systematically found it, so unifacial, so choppers and discoidal cores and further continued coarse flakes. So these are some of the important things. So unifacial chapos and discoidal cores. So like that. So unifacial cores. So then for the chapos, so discoidal cores. And furthermore, we had the flakes. So flakes were continued. So these were coarse flakes. So coarse flakes became fine flakes like that. So that's one another important thing. Now coming to the late zone phase. So what has happened in the late zone phase? So late zone phase is basically nothing but it's the advanced stage of the zone cultural tradition. So in fact we will call it as a kind of advanced stage of tool tradition. Advanced stage of tool tradition. So as we are calling it as an advanced stage, so already the artifacts and already tools has been framed. So now what has happened? So it was a period and it exhibited a kind of technological refinement. So where we could able to see some of the tools like discoidal cores were flourished, and keeled scrapers and pebble choppers. So like that we have got some other important artifacts here. So it is characterized by technological refinements. So it is one important characteristic. So furthermore, so we can see some of the important tools like, as I have said, so it is one thing is keeled scrapers. So furthermore we have discoidal cores. So like that. So discoidal cores, keeled scrapers. So furthermore we also has had the pebble stones. So like this, the 3 interval periodization of the zone culture can be understood like this. So try to recollect this. So this is very, very important. So you have to remember this here. So who proposed this 3 interval periodization? It has been proposed by Helmut D. Terra and T.T. Patterson in the year 1939 in systematic geological studies. So that's one important thing. So it has been systematically divided into pre-zone phase, early zone phase and the late zone phase. So then pre-zone phase is basically known as the earliest stage. Early zone phase is known as the core developmental stage, and the late zone phase is characterized by it's an advanced stage of tool tradition. Right? So how we have done this? So we have done this kind of they have done this kind of classification by considering 2 important criteria. So one is stratigraphic method as well as the technological progression. So that's how they have done it. So this is another important aspect we should remember. Is that clear for you? So now, so after understanding how they have developed or how they have progressed, so now let us try to understand some of the key characteristics of the zone cultural tradition. Right? Is that it clear for you all? So those who have joined online, is that it clear? Shall we proceed towards the key characteristics? Can you able to remember the 3 interval periodization now? Okay, so let's move further. So let's try to understand about the key characteristics of the Soanian culture. So what are the key characteristics that we should remember? So let's pick them. So key characteristics. Key characteristics of Soanian culture. So what are the key characteristics? Or cultural tradition. So whatever it is, you can have it and write it. So simply, ideally it should be key characteristics, right? Furthermore, now first if we see, so we can try to understand about the geographical location and geographical distribution of this particular tool tradition. So where we can see this in a systematic fashion. So now, can you able to just mention where they have been found? As at the Soan River Valley is one thing. So if you say from one landmark thing that we have to say, so along which hills or which mountains they have been found. So can you text in the chat box? So first thing that we are going to understand is its geographical location or geographical spread. So you can have it like that. So this is one important characteristic. So where did they found? So systematically, if you see, so the entire Soanian tool tradition has been found in and around the Shivalik hills of the northern India and Pakistan. So that is another very, very important fact that you should remember. So it was found along the foothills of, so along the foothills of, Shivalik hills. So of Indian region and Pakistan. So this is a very important finding that you should remember. And not only this, particularly if you see, so exact location was in and around the in Son River Valley. So this was the geographical location. So the Soanian cultural tradition not only seen here, so Soanian cultural tradition has also been observed in many other parts of the India also. So where we can see some of the observations can be seen in Kerala, some of the findings can be seen in Karnataka, and some of the findings have also been seen in some other parts of the India. So that's where, so what we should remember is that, so it's not only restricted to this particular geographical location, that is Son River Valley, so rather it has been extended and the artifacts has been found in some other parts of the India also. So that's another important thing. So then furthermore, so next important characteristic that we should remember is to which geological period it belongs to. So this is other important information that we should know. So what about the geological period? So when we talk about the geological period, so Soanian Valley or Soanian cultural tradition, it belongs to basically lower to middle Paleolithic period, and in terms of the geological time scale, if we say, so it belongs to the middle Pleistocene epoch, middle Pleistocene kind of period. So it's around 2.3 million years ago time period. So that is very important thing that we should remember, right? So what we can mention, so it belongs to middle Pleistocene. So be clear here, I'm talking from the perspective of middle Pleistocene period, which is roughly corresponding to around 2 to 0.3 million years ago time period. So this is very important thing that you should remember, right? 2 million years ago to 0.3 million years ago. So that's one important point that you should remember. Furthermore, in terms of normal Stone Age, if we talk from the perspective of Stone Age, so it belongs to the lower to middle Paleolithic period. Lower to middle Paleolithic period. Is that clear? So this is the Stone Age point of view. So we have to remember in both the ways. So that's one thing. Then further important things. So what we should remember. So if you see from its what are the various types of tools that were found here. So another important thing we should remember here. So next important characteristic that we should remember is that, so key tool types that were observed here or that were found here. So what were the key tools that we have got from here, or the tools belong to this particular tradition? So can you text now? So with already some of them you know, so can you text in the chat box about some of the key tools? So something, so what we can have, unifacial choppers, so then pebble flakes, scrapers, borers, cores, discoidal core, so all such kind of things. So first we can mention, we should definitely remember about unifacial choppers. Then we should mention about the pebble stones. Then we should mention about discoidal cores. And in this fashion, so there are so many like that. So we have the scrapers, we have the borers, and we have got all of those kind of things. Flakes, very good. So we have also got the flakes, so pebble stones, flakes, unifacial choppers, so all of them are nothing but the tool types that we have found there. Right? Now, what kind of technology we have used in making this kind of tools? So that is very, very important. So as you can see the pebble stone, so this culture is also known as lower to middle Paleolithic pebble stone cultural tradition. That's another important name of this Soanian cultural tradition. So furthermore, so if you see here, so furthermore, so what kind of technology we have used there? So tool technology. What's the tool technology? So if you systematically look from the perspective of the tool technology, so the important tool technology that they have used was, one is known as the flat based technique and other one is known as the bipolar technique. So to carve out the sharp bladed edges. So for that, so one is, it is known as the bipolar technique. Bipolar technique is one technique. So this was extensively used to systematically devise or to systematically prepare working edges of the instruments. So working edges, so two sides, the sharp edges. So that was one thing. Then flat based technique. So this is another technique. So what is this flat based technique? So they used to just make flakes with the flat based technology, so making the things flatten. So that's another important thing. So furthermore, so good, so many instruments you have mentioned: scrapers, flakes, choppers. Very good, so very good both of you, so Venushri as well as Pragna. So that was the right thing, so you should remember and you should recollect like that. So then what was the core material used? So with what material we could able to frame them? So key material that has been used here was mostly like we had like quartzite pebbles were there, cobbles were there, and boulders were there. So mostly stones. So they were nothing but stones. So quartzite pebbles, then cobbles, then we had boulders. So they were some of the important key characteristics that we should remember from the perspective of our Soanian cultural tradition. Is that clear? Now, what is the significance of this Soanian cultural tradition? That we should remember. So when we talk from the perspective of this significance, so Soanian cultural tradition, it's a systematic, it's a kind of a typical regional adaptation to the existing ecological as well as raw material availability of the Shivalik hills. So that's very, very important thing that you should remember. So in a simple fashion to say, it's a kind of systematic regional adaptation to the ecological conditions of the Shivalik hills. So that's the core thing that you should remember and you have to mention. Is that it clear? So significance is that it's a typical regional adaptation to the ecological conditions of the Shivalik hills. So try to catch this and try to mention this. So that's another important aspect. So these are all nothing but some of the key characteristics of our Soanian culture or Soan Valley culture. Is that it clear for you? Now, the big question from my side to you is that who were the makers of the Soanian culture? So now try to just answer this question. Who were the makers? Who were the probable makers of this particular culture? And while studying the Soanian culture, we should also understand about some other important term that is known as the Movius line. So there is some other important thing that is known as Movius line. So my question to you is that, so what is Movius line? That's one question. And who are the makers of the Soanian culture? So this is another important question. So can you text? So who are the makers of Soanian culture, cultural tradition? Yes, anyone? So if you systematically see from the perspective of the makers of the Soanian culture, cultural tradition, so early interpretations basically they suggest that it is like Homo erectus was considered to be the makers of this particular tradition. So first thing, so early one observation is that early interpretations they suggest that Homo erectus is considered as the makers. But friends, some of the recent studies, it also further suggests that it's the modern man or Homo sapiens also the person could be possible makers of this. So that is another important thing. So this is also another thing. So recent studies suggest that modern man means we should remember Homo sapiens, because so actually what has happened here means, so we have got some of the evidences from the mid-Holocene era also. So this is one another important thing. So this Soanian tool tradition, Soanian tools have also been found from belonging to mid-Holocene period. So as they were found during that time period, so it is also believed that, so some of the recent studies propose that modern man could be the possible maker. So either it could be Homo erectus and it could be Homo sapiens or modern man. So both of them are valid answer for this question, right? So furthermore, so if you see what is the Movius line, so this is another important aspect that we should remember. So the concept of Movius line has been, in fact, that has been proposed by an important famous archaeologist known as Hallam Movius. So the name of this scholar is Hallam Movius. So this has been proposed by Hallam Movius. So remember his name. So as per his name, so the name has been given like that. So who is he? So Hallam Movius, he was a kind of important or a famous archaeologist. So what he has done systematically, so Hallam Movius has highlighted and he proposed one theoretical line, so which could able to systematically, which can demarcate the technological boundary between different aspects. So that's one thing. So first thing, so here it's a kind of theoretical line which demarcates the technological boundary between the regions of Grand Acheulean technology and small traditions like Swan technology. So this is one thing that you should remember, right? So in very simple fashion to say, so prior to Soanian culture, so we had a kind of Acheulean tool technology. So This systematically demarcates, Mobius line systematically demarcates the boundary between the different regions belonging to the Acheulean tool technology and some of the small technologies like Swan technology. So that's Mobius line. So this Mobius line is a theoretical line that has been proposed by Hallam Mobius. So he is an archaeologist. So that is another important thing that you should remember. So try to explore more about the Mobius line and try to explore more about these kind of things. So because there could be any possibility that like they may be picked and they may be asked. So if you mention such kind of facts, so that shows that you are furthermore pro in the conceptual understanding. So try to catch that and try to understand that. So that's very, very important aspect. So this is what all about the Soanian tool tradition. So any further questions? So explain reason why modern man too is called as maker of the Soanian culture. So yes, so what has happened? So we have got some of the tools belonging to the mid-Holocene period of the geological time scale. So we found them. So as we could able to systematically found some of the important tools that were belonging to the mid-Holocene period of the geological time scale. So it is also believed that modern man have started emerging in the Holocene period, isn't it? So as we have found some of the tools belonging to mid-Holocene also from the Swan tool tradition, so it is also believed that modern man also could be the maker of the Soanian tool tradition. So that's another important fact, right? So a good question. So very good. So that's all for the day from my side. So any further doubts with respect to this particular concept? So you can just mention, or those who are looking in the those who are watching in the video, so you can also text in the comment section. So if whatever your doubts are. So this is all from my side for today. So try to recollect and try to read all of these kind of important things. So recollect these things like 3 interval periodization. This is very, very important. So friends, that's all for the day from my side. So let's meet tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. and let's try to discuss about another important question. Let's take up another question from the paper 2 and let's try to proceed it with like that. So thank you all of you for joining me with this session, and thank you all those who have joined through live and those who are watching in the video format also. So let's meet tomorrow 11:30 a.m. Thank you once again.